WJEL Indianapolis.
Hello, Washington Township community. Happy April. I hope everyone had a wonderful spring break. It doesn't feel like spring break because today we have white stuff back on the ground, which is a bit disturbing, but we'll get to warm weather soon, I hope. I want to give a couple of announcements coming up for the district. Tomorrow night, we have parent council. Very important. All parents in the community are invited, 7 p.m. at my office, central office, which is next to North Central High School. The topic is a very important one. Our school board candidate committee will be discussed at the next parent council. This is the governing body for our entire school system, so a very important topic, and I invite everyone to come. Our elementary schools are preparing for their international baccalaureate exhibitions, and this is such a wonderful culminating event for our fifth graders at each of our elementary schools that combines all the skills that they have worked on, including research and media literacy throughout their elementary careers. Our middle schools and North Central are also preparing for IB authorization information to come back from their visit that they had this past fall, and we're excited about that. The last day of school, I have to keep saying this, I have two seniors in the studio today, is May 30th. We did have some snow days that we had to tack on to the end there. Complete details are on our website. And commencement, I get to shake the hands of hopefully almost 800 graduates this year at downtown at the Convention Center on May 28th. And I do have two seniors in the studio. Cameron and Adam, welcome today. Thank you for joining me. And we also have a celebrity in the studio, an icon.
The students, the seniors, right?
The seniors are always a hit, but we truly have an icon for the Washington Township community in the city. If they cannot recognize your voice already, Amos Brown is here, joining us here at WJEL. Welcome.
Well, Superintendent, it's a pleasure to be here, especially a station that has been serving Indianapolis and Washington Township for forever almost.
For a long time. And we have lots of student accolades coming out of this program. Both of the students, Cameron and Adam, are here for their second year. Tell us a little bit about your highlights of being in this program here at WJEL.
Well, JEL has really introduced me a lot to being able to work in the studio, and I like to create music, and I actually do like radio.
Nice.
It's really opened up the avenue for me to get into this type of business.
Great. Adam, what do you want to do next? What's your next step?
First I'm going to go to Vincent's Aviation Institute.
Wonderful.
And get a degree for building airplanes, and then after that, 2 years is up, I will be trying to become a pilot.
Fantastic.
So he's going to be career ready.
He is already career ready because of the preparation he has received here, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. We're very proud of you, but do share about your dad, because this is kind of great. You sitting right next to Amos Brown, and you're going to get to ask him questions. Tell him about what you said your dad does every week.
My dad, it's not very uncommon to hear my dad, like when I jump into the car, Mr. Amos actually be talking. It's kind of weird that I'm sitting like right now.
It's a great opportunity.
I just want to know, do you jump in the car seat when I bang on the table? Is that in the studio?
Let's do that.
It's usually like a really high energy conversation going on usually. So I like
high
that.
energy. That's because Amos Brown is known for high energy and controversial topics.
Yes.
Yet allowing people in the community to speak their mind, perhaps.
Emotion.
And emotion. And my most important part of his show is getting people the right information. And that's what I appreciate about your outreach into the community. Is it's okay, lots of people in the community have issues or problems, but getting them connected to the right information is the most important part, I think, of your show that it has done for the community.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
And we also have Cameron. Welcome, Cameron. Cameron's
Hello,
running
guys.
the board for us.
Yes, I am.
Tell us a little bit about your experience.
All right. Well, I came here at JEL. I am taking digital media arts with Mr. Heineman. And that class, I like it because it's giving me a multitude of learning audio, learning video, editing techniques, working with we have a studio over there. We have real live video cameras like you'd see in the newsroom.
Absolutely. Hands-on is important for a Washington Township learner.
And then I just feel like it's really going to prepare me for what I'm going to look forward to in college and my career beyond.
Great. You want to tell us a little bit about what's your next step?
I hopefully I'm going to attend IUPUI or Ivy Tech and do digital media or some kind of visual communication. And then hopefully after a couple years, start off low, and then work my way, get some experience, and hopefully work for a bigger company and design or create some kind of web development or something like that.
Fantastic. Well, I'm so proud of both of you. You are the neos in this broadcasting field, but we have a veteran with almost 40 years. Is that correct?
Be ending 39 years the end of this month.
Wow. That's incredible.
A long.
job.
The students just discovered that I have gray hair. That is when you
It's a
think about it,
long
that is a
time.
long time.
Tell us a little bit about some of your highlights among those 39 years.
Well, it's interesting. I'm here on a radio station at 89.3 FM, and
Weekdays 1 to 3.
Went to Northwestern University. Grew up in Chicago. Attended Chicago Public Schools. They had a radio station, but you could not, as a student, be on the radio station because it was designed for adults to be like traditional, boring, old-fashioned public radio. But what got me the radio bug, because everybody in my church wanted me to be a minister, because I would always get up and give a speech on Sunday service, or they said, oh, you need to be a lawyer. I think usually if they thought you spoke well, you either were supposed to be a lawyer or a preacher.
Or a pastor, that's right.
But then the public teacher told me in high school about a quarterly thing with the Chicago Public Schools radio station. You had to go downtown, ride the subway.
Like an internship.
Yeah, like an internship kind of thing. And you learn the basics of radio. This is old-fashioned radio. And we had to end up doing a radio play, which I think students of the day don't really know what that is, but just imagine something on it that would be a regular play that you would see in the movies or on cable or on stage, and just put that audio only, using sound effects and what have you, like a video without the pictures.
What play was it? Do you remember?
I don't even remember. It had something to do about robots and was written by somebody from Eastern Europe and Czechoslovakia. I can't even remember the name of it. And then decided, I want to do this. And then Northwestern University had a summer camp where I was still thinking about lawyers, so I applied for debate. They said, well, we're full up on debate, and we'll stick you in radio, television, and film. And discovered, I enjoyed that more because I discovered debate was a lot of work with those little index cards. I said, no, this is more fun. And that's where I went to school, and they had a campus radio station at 89.3 FM.
Wow.
And when we started in 68, the station only ran from 3 in the afternoon to 11, student run. And we were crazy freshmen that came in 68. By the time we graduated in 72, the station was running 24 hours a day.
Wow.
And even during the time when students were not there, students who lived off campus and were around during the holidays volunteered to work. And the radio station, WNUR, continues a 24-hour day station. It is one of the most, it is an independent station, student run. You don't have to be majoring in that. We had engineering students, we had journalism students, we had pre-law students who would work on the radio because they loved it. And it is one of the most prestigious college radio stations in the country.
Very nice.
And it's all student run.
Wow.
And you've been back, I'm sure, to visit.
Yeah, they got pretty good. They got not as good equipment as I have in the company, but they got pretty good equipment. And
Very
just
nice.
looking, you're going in the basement of this old 100-year-old building.
Nice.
Then when I left, when I graduated, wanted to I don't know whether it's the mistake or I took the first gig that came along.
Okay.
And I worked in PR for the 4-H Club Foundation because I was an urban 4-H'er. Now, my projects were like public speaking, photography, knock cows and chickens. And learned, actually, that while I was in PR, that Indianapolis had one of the largest urban 4-H programs in the country. This was in the mid-'70s. And then that didn't work out. Was getting bored, wanted to get into broadcasting, eventually wanted to get in management. In those days, you had to go through sales to do that. So I wrote letters. I picked radio stations that were like maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th in the market, and I picked cities within a day's drive of Chicago. I must have written maybe 100, 120 letters, got back 10. All but 2 were rejections. Thanks, kid, but no thanks. And then one was a radio station in Chicago that played oldies, and the other was WTLC. And I'd never been to Indianapolis. It was a day's drive. I said, okay, I'll come down here. My first view was seeing the circle surrounded by pennies and buses and pigeons.
Let's pause right there. I heard you. Did you say the word persistent?
Yes.
because let's just pause there. This is a learning lesson for the students. Today's generation thinks that things come quick and you try a couple of things and it's going to be given to you. You had to remain persistent. I love the fact that you use that word, Adam, with just trying to get that first opportunity. Over 100 letters. It's not like you said, I want that job and I'm just going to wait and get it. You had to persist.
It was persistence. It was at the end of 74 going into 75. That was a mild recession. During that time, it was not the best job market. And I kept living off of savings and the credit card. We are not supposed to do that with the credit card, but things were cheaper then.
Sure.
And then had an interview with the station in Chicago. The interview lasted 1 hour. I was offered a job as a salesperson, and I got no tour. I came down to Indianapolis to WTLC. The interview started. I had to be there like at 10. The interview started at 10. I got to meet the owner. I had lunch with the general manager.
Very
I got
nice.
the tour. I got to sit in the studio
Felt different.
and talk to the DJ, and I got the job offer for $20 a week less than what they offered in Chicago. And I'm going, okay, you offered me more money in Chicago, but I didn't get the tour. Going to Indianapolis, town I never heard of before, and, I get the dinner, I meet the owner, blah,
Sure.
blah, 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 for $20 a week less. And so the idea was, okay, I'll try this, I'll do this for a couple of years, get experience, then I can move on.
Go back, yes.
That didn't work.
And how many years later, here you are.
39. Jack Benny years.
Have you enjoyed it?
Yes. You can't be in any occupation for that long and not enjoy it. If there are people here in the Washington Township family who have been here, and I know there are people who've been here 30 plus years, they're here because they enjoy it.
Absolutely.
If you can't get up every day and not learn something new, the challenge, though, when you get that kind of longevity, the challenge, what keeps me going is because we have so many radio stations now in the building with Hot 96.3 and Radio Now, those are the ones you're familiar with, as well as WTLC AM and FM, we have a bunch of younger employees. And the younger employees keep me young.
Sure.
Some look younger than you guys.
Wow. Okay.
So, I'm learning from them. What they don't teach young people is if you end up in a career over a number of years and you're fortunate enough to be successful and people look up to you, it carries an extra responsibility because it took me a while to understand this, how young people look up to you. And so if you are in a situation and freak out, then that freaks out the younger employees.
Absolutely.
Because they're looking up to you figuring, okay, if Amos freaks out, then we got to freak out and that's something they don't teach. And I don't know whether, maybe that ought to be in the state standards, teaching how you're observed by others.
Well, and your profession that you've done for 39 years is very different than other professions. Other professions can prepare and then put out a product or give a service. You are live and in person, and mistakes are visible. So what has been your most fascinating or interesting on-air experience?
Oh. Nobody's asked me that. The one that was exciting and dangerous at the same time when President Bush was at the RCA Dome at a Dress Black Expo. We were there broadcasting live. So the expectation was the Secret Service had told us, all right, media, you all have to stay in this position. You cannot leave. We were stuck in the stands.
Okay.
And the people were enjoying lunch on the floor of the Hoosier Dome. And you cannot, I said, I'm used to walking the you cannot go, you stay up here. And I said, okay. So the expectation was the president would give his address and then he would leave. Well, the president decided to walk down onto the floor of the stadium and shake hands. It's called working the rope line. When that started, the Secret Service, who were watching us, left to go and form a cordon to protect the president as he worked the rope line.
I see.
At that point, us media, hey, let me go down there, and I'm live on the radio, and I'm holding a wireless microphone, and I'm going, let's see how close we can get to the president. And in my head, I'm going, gee, can I get close enough to be able to shout a question at him holding my mic? I get maybe close enough, I'd say 50, maybe no more than 100 feet, to where I could see the crinkles in his eyes. I could see that he has blue eyes. I could see that he was about the same height as I was, because my perception was I thought he was like 6 foot.
Oh, man.
And all of a sudden, he's moving right to left, shaking hands, and people got their cell phone cameras up. And then I'm reaching toward him, trying to move through the crowd. And at that point, I noticed a Secret Service man maybe 15 feet in front of where the president was, walking parallel, as he was like the extra level of protection. At that point, I realized I'm holding a wireless mic that could be construed as a stick of dynamite or some kind of weapony thing. And my vision of shouting a question to the President of the United States, caution, hit me. And I kind of backed up and said, oh, I see the president, and I kind of just nodded at him.
Yes.
I don't know whether he acknowledged me. And then he moved on. And I had the privilege a couple of weeks ago of meeting his wife.
Very nice.
Former
When
First
she was
Lady
here.
Laura Bush, who was here
At Butler University.
And I mentioned that story to her. She loved it.
Fantastic. How
She
neat.
had so suddenly you're live and you realize, do you really want the scoop or do you want to stay?
And Amos is taken down by Secret Service.
Yeah, they got taken out by Secret Service. But it gave me an opportunity to see his personality, because when you're there with the rope line, and I don't think he knew what kind of reception he was going to get when he came out here, and he gave a speech to talk more about education and the social issues that I think were passionate with him. And having now had the privilege of meeting his wife, I can see how the two of them work together.
Very
and there's a
nice.
passion in some of the causes that they have, including working in Africa, dealing with the HIV crisis over there, that a compassion that didn't really come out because of all the other things that
were happening.
the Bush administration had to go through.
Okay.
I've had the honor of meeting two presidents up close and impersonal, President Clinton and President Obama, and I agree with you that we have this image from media, from print, from people talking about them, but those personal glimpses up close and personal with them give you a different feeling. And so I personally take that into my leadership of a large school corporation with 11,000 kids and 1,500 staff members, because sometimes people can just see me on the pieces that I do on the radio or the newsletter or the website. But to have that personal contact with me, for me to be in a classroom with a student, for me to co-teach a lesson on Africa with a teacher at Eastwood or things like that, I think it's important. It's a good leadership skill that I learned from those personal encounters. Speaking of lessons, we've got students who listen to this radio station. What lessons would you leave for our students here in Washington Township from your life lessons?
Be curious. Don't be afraid to be curious. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to learn more of what's going on in the world. Don't be afraid to read. You know, I think over the years I've tended to be a reader, more nonfiction than fiction. I'm not a great fiction person. So that I think the nonfiction, being up on current events, helped. Grew up in a family where the newspaper was read by an adult, and not out loud, but newspaper, so read that at an early age. In Chicago in the 60s and 70s, people were used to you getting on the subway, getting on the bus, and reading a newspaper. Now today, it's reading a phone, or it's reading a tablet or an iPad.
But it may not always be news.
Yeah, but it's some kind of information. It was interesting. I lived when I went to Northwestern, lived in Evanston, and the first year I worked downtown, I rode a commuter train. So it's a little bit different because there people are reading newspapers or they're executives doing work. You know, either coming into work, you know, open up a briefcase, looking at something, or going away from work, going back home. But there was always that reading, very little conversation. And I think today information now comes in so many sources. And part of what students need to do is learn how to filter out what's good, bad, or indifferent, because the internet is a great tool, but there's bad information on the internet disguised as good information. And the other thing is also understanding it is easy to click and paste on the internet, but you got to remember to say where you got it from. One of the things that I was trained to do is, if you're going to take information, say where you got it from. Give attribution. So if I'm reading an article off of a computer screen and I'm talking to the listeners, I'm telling the listeners this came from such and such. Instead of the easiest thing is just lift it and make people think it's your own. You really can't do stuff like that, because that gets adults in trouble. That gets students in trouble because they'll throw you out of school.
What's the word we use for that, Adam and Cameron? Plagiarism.
That's plagiarism.
Yes. That'll take you down quickly.
Oh,
That's right. Adam, what questions do you have?
Really, for the students, there aren't as many jobs in the radio as there used to be. So how does a young person go about working in the radio business?
I think
how do they get started?
You first research the jobs that are available and what people are looking, what broadcasters are looking for. The jobs where we always have openings, and I think this is not just our company and our stations, but others as well, is salespeople. Okay, you can never have enough salespeople, and the skill of a salesperson is not someone like when you go to a store and they say, okay, what size shirt do you want? It is someone who has the ability to walk into somebody's store, understand what that store does, is not afraid to ask questions. Gee, Mr. Shoe Store person, what kind of shoes do people have? What kind of customers do you have? And ask questions about their business and say, okay, now that I've learned a little about your business, I'm going to come back in a week and show you how what I have will help you get over. That's research. That's analyzation. That's teachers, I didn't really mean that word. That's analyzing. That's looking, putting yourself in the other person's shoe, and then coming up with a plan that can help them. That's really what a salesperson does. Got to have good reading skills, good verbal skills, good written skills, good skills of spotting a problem, creativity. So if students have those kinds of ingredients, salesperson. We have jobs called promotions. They're the people when you go out to a store, you see the tent for a radio station, you see the people in the station, T-shirts pass out. That's called promotions. And that a lot of times has become the entry level, where somebody comes in, does a good job, we see aptitude in he or she, and the next thing you know, that voice is like that gentleman over there behind the controls. The only difference is they get paid for it. Those are the two areas where we'll always need salespeople. We'll always need the people to do those setups, what we call promotions. Other people might call it production assistants, to do that. And those are the levels where you move up, either into management, team leader, those kind of things.
Now, do you think you see a lot of people doing internships with your radio station that you're at?
We do internships at the college level. Thanks to a number of media organizations that treated interns badly and overworked them for no pay, interns now get paid.
Oh, wow.
Because hey, thank the lawyers.
That excited Adam.
What?
Adam sat up straighter with that one.
Thank the lawyers, but you got to be a college student.
Okay.
Because the same lawyer,
He's months away.
the same lawyer said you can't use high school kids anymore. I don't know what lawyer figured that out, and that kind of hurt us a little bit.
Or instead of nixing that out, put some parameters on it to attack or address the issues.
I think they were. I don't know whether there were some liability issues, but there was something that came up where corporate said, no, we can't do the high school thing anymore across the whole corporation. One of and people know that most media today is owned by corporations.
Sure.
Corporations where the stock is traded on the stock market. Our company is a public company, but the controlling stock is controlled by an African American woman and her son. Mom and son built our company from one little radio station, AM station in Washington, D.C. to 55 stations in 15 cities, plus the TV One cable network, plus a whole lot of websites that I'm supposed to put stuff on every day.
Cameron, what questions do you have?
All right. My question, I just thought of. I was thinking, where do you see yourself maybe in a few years from now or in the future doing radio?
Besides getting a Social Security check once a month? I don't. That's a good question. I don't know. Every day I'm there, I'm pushing an envelope. Because it was interesting, I got a tweet from Channel 6 over the weekend that was congratulating Derek Thomas for 35 years.
Oh, wow.
And I saw Derek yesterday, and he started blushing because he doesn't want to really acknowledge he's been around that long. I don't, when you get to 40 years in any industry, it's hard to figure out what you want to do next. I honestly don't know.
Well, let me follow up
my
with
family
this.
keeps asking me that. What do you want to do? I don't know.
Let me follow up with this. After almost 40 years in the industry, what do you want your legacy to be?
That he tried to do good. That he served people. I think a lot of they don't prepare. You're never prepared to be a public figure. And it's a profession that I chose, and so the good and the not so good come with the territory. The not so good is
You're recognized everywhere.
my better half, always say, you can't go out looking like that. It's Saturday morning. Why can't I? People
Because you'll
will
be
see
recognized.
You. But I think what really brings it home is, and I know teachers feel this who've been around, is when somebody stops you in the street or at the grocery store or the gas station and say, you spoke at my school when, I toured your station when, I met you here, and then you realize the impact on your life. It really first hit me the first time I was doing an interview with Tavis Smiley. And Tavis said, I remember listening to you on WTLC when you would be on with Bill Hudnut.
Wow, yes.
And here's Tavis Smiley, this is maybe 10 years ago. He was a success. He's moving up. And he grew up here in Kokomo, went to IU, so obviously he would have listened. But suddenly you hear that from someone like that, and you go, oh, that's an impact.
Absolutely.
And you don't... And I guess that is what a teacher feels.
Absolutely.
They didn't tell me that in radio class. They didn't talk about that part of it.
Well, it's been fascinating having you here, Cameron and Adam. Thank you so much for joining in on the conversation. We have a few things from Washington Township for you. I'm not sure if you're a coffee drinker, but it's a coffee mug with the Washington Township icon on it.
No, it'll
you
work
can
with
use it
Dr.
for
Pepper.
water, juice, Dr. Pepper.
It'll work with Dr.
Is it
Pepper. There you go.
Drinking. And a Stand Up for Public Education bracelet, because here in Washington Township, we are proud supporters of public education, and we feel based on our results, we're doing a really good job.
I wonder if I wear this to the Education Roundtable meeting Monday, where I got to take a public vote on these standards.
You will have instant credibility.
Will I get it? Will I get in trouble?
No, we appreciate your support, not only of Washington Township schools, but of public schools. Not just appreciating all the good things we're doing, but asking us challenging questions, keeping us on our toes in the community. And I am delighted to come back to your show anytime to talk about the good things happening here in Washington Township.
Superintendent, it's a pleasure to finally, after 39 years, to get inside the walls of 89.3 WJEL.
Very nice. You'll have to get a soundbite of that before he leaves.
All right. All right.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Adam
you.
and Cameron. Thank you
Adam
as
and
well.
Cameron.
Very much.
Back to JEL. We'll be back next month in May for a year-end wrap-up here on WJEL. If you have any topics of interest, please feel free to email me. My email can be accessed on our district website. Have a great April, Washington Township.
WJEL, Indianapolis.